guess it taller. I look way taller than you. And maybe not quite like that. Okay. Welcome back to In the House with Beth and Ryan. I'm Beth, and this is Ryan.
Today, we're going to take a look at what happened in November and where that takes us from a full year perspective, but then we're also going to take a look at how the impact of what's happening now in December may impact us in the new year. So, November?
Yeah, this November, despite what we heard all over the news, the market was actually pretty flat to last year. Number of units sold was almost identical, and actually average sale price of a house increased a little bit from last year.
Yeah, and the total dollar volume of all the homes that sold was about the same too. So overall, Guelph held its own in November for sure. And then if you take a look at a full year perspective, yes, we're down versus last year, but it's not all bad news. Sales in Guelph, the overall units in Guelph is down about 9%, but overall, it's really not that bad of a year. And sometimes when you hear those news headlines, you think that the real estate market is crashing, and it's certainly not what it was last year, that's for sure. And the market has shifted, but it's not all bad news.
No, I think September and October, when we looked back on those months, they were definitely down from prior years. But now we're kind of right back where we normally are, and we're heading into the end of the year, especially from a real estate perspective, where we're starting to actually see houses that haven't sold cancel, and likely they'll come back in the new year. So things are definitely slowing down now, but they're actually on par with previous years.
So we naturally see cancellations that happen towards the end of the year, but we're seeing an increased number of cancellations. We think because the sellers have had the house on the market for quite a while, it's not selling, and so they've decided to take it off the market and hope for what typically we're used to seeing is a stronger spring market. So they take it off the market now where there are less buyers and hopefully bring it back when there are more buyers. There might be a bit of a challenge with that though.
Right. Well, we have another interest rate announcement coming up. Is it the 24th?
Yes, 24th of January.
January 24th. A lot of people are predicting that the rates will start to come down again. Whether we see that with this first announcement or not, probably
won't be. It'll probably be in March. But the language that they use in January could be indicative of future decreases. The U.S. just did that.
Right, and so we, as we know, often follow that market, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with buyers in particular, whether people will decide to hold off, wait to purchase that next home when they can potentially get things at a lower interest rate, or whether the market will start strong in the new year, given that the fall overall was fairly slow.
Right, and there's some talk about sellers taking their houses off the market and putting them back on in the new year, along with the traditional spring volume that just naturally happens in the market when the weather gets nicer and people's homes look nicer with the green grass and flowers. If all of those come together, the remainder of 2023 and of the 2024, maybe we'll have a lot more inventory, and we're going to need buyers to support that, to maintain a balanced market. And if we don't have those buyers, but we do have the inventory, we could be in a situation where prices take a further hit, and we could move into a buyer's market. So of course it's unknown what will happen, but part of the challenge is trying to figure out when the best time is to sell a house if you're a seller, and when the best time is to buy the house if you're the buyer.
Historically, and I think it's safe to say this might be true again this year, listing a little earlier in the spring is beneficial for a seller.
Yeah.
You get ahead of that inventory. People who are waiting until kind of April, May, when things have greened up more, like Ryan said, but if you could get ahead of that and list kind of end of January, February, March, you will be ahead of that inventory and potentially have more buyers looking at your property.
Yeah, and statistically we find in Guelph the best time to list a house is probably mid-February. Yes, there's probably still going to be snow on the ground. You wouldn't know it from today, but there are more buyers during that time, but there are less people who have their houses on the market because they're waiting for the spring market. So it's almost like you're jumping the line if you're a seller to get those buyers before they have more choice of inventory.
Historically, from our perspective, we start to hear from buyers at the beginning of the new year. People have kind of shifted their mindset. It's the new year. They're ready to make that move, and they're watching the market really closely, just waiting for the right house to come up for them.
Yep. So It'll be an interesting start to the new year to see. I don't think it will be as traditional as we've seen. For context, last January, we saw the same sort of trend that we're seeing this month. We're very low sales in December. And then January, sort of out of nowhere, the first few weeks were really, really busy. And that went all the way pretty much until May, until at that point it started slowing down. But so January can catch you off guard if buyers start coming out. A lot of people just have decided they're done for the year. A New Year's resolution will be start looking again, and that's when sometimes the market changes. So, anyways, I think that's
that wraps it up.
That
for
wraps
us
it up for
today.
this month. Hope you and your family have a happy holidays, and we will see you next month. As always, if you have more questions on the Guelph real estate market, you can visit us online at bethandryan.ca.